Hello and welcome to Indie Designer Journal, episode 24. Today we're going to be looking at the alchemy system for UnderQuest. UnderQuest is the game that I'm currently working. It's on not the back burner, I guess you'd say it's on the front burner. I've been working on it pretty steadily for the last, 5 or 6 months. I've been trying to include all of you fine folks in the creative process, showing you bits and pieces of how different systems in the game work. And today we're going to look at the alchemy system. If you go back to some of the earlier episodes on this series, you'll see that we already sort of looked at alchemy. I believe, I don't know if it was the third episode or what episode it was, and we went through a few different possible scenarios for how the crafting system would work. And I've done a lot of play testing, a lot of trial and error, and finally came up with a system that I'm happy with. And it was a real balance for me to find something that made the player feel like there was a puzzle or a challenge involved in the crafting system, and not, but also not make it too cumbersome. I didn't want the system to become such a mini game within the game that it took away from the primary focus of the game, and that is adventure. But I did want it to be something more than the typical here's a potion, here's what it does. I wanted to give control to the player, basically give the player the ability to have some control over what they're creating with ingredients instead of just giving them a finished potion. So we're going to turn this camera around. I'm going to show you some of the prototype cards that I've been using to test the system and basically go over the rules for how they work. Now I know this will appeal to designers, but also people who are interested in UnderQuest and the development of it. And I've been getting so much feedback from you fine folks over the past few months as I've sort of turned up the heat on the design process for this game. UnderQuest is going to be my largest game to date for sure, as far as time investment on my end. There's going to be an awful lot of illustration artwork to do that I've already started sharing quite a bit of it with everyone, as far as the enemies and the beginning of what the dungeon deck's going to look like. But today, like I said, we're going to focus on the alchemy system. So we're going to turn this camera around. We're going to take a look at how it works, and we'll probably discuss a few little details in game design is basically how I came to decide that this was the best route for UnderQuest. And also, I kind of want to talk a little bit about adding little finishing touches to your game. So we'll get into that more, and I have the camera turned onto this table. But I thank you very much for stopping by, and please, if you have any suggestions for this system, please leave comments below. Like I said, for the most part, I'm pretty confident this is what I'm going with, but I'd like to hear your thoughts, or maybe other games that utilize systems similar to this, or just have a good solid crafting system. I'm very curious to research those, so please leave comments and suggestions in regards to that. So without wasting any more time, let's turn this camera around and take a look at the alchemy system for the upcoming UnderQuest. Okay, welcome to the table. What you have in front of you here are 5 examples of the cards for the ingredients deck for UnderQuest. I made these up as final prototypes for testing. The final deck will have 30 cards in it, and they will all be unique. So that is one of the reasons why UnderQuest is going to take me some time to complete. In fact, there's a high likelihood that I will be releasing a different game, a smaller game, prior to actually releasing UnderQuest, because I'm trying to take my time with this game and not skip out on any small detail. I could have easily came up with 10 different ingredients and then made 3 copies of each to make the deck of 30, but I decided just how I liked how the mechanic worked. I wanted every ingredient to be unique, which was going to, like I said, going to require me to do a unique illustration for every card, and anyone who is an illustrator understands that it takes some time. All the enemy cards that I've already shared with you, each one of those takes me anywhere from 3 to 5 hours to complete, and every little detail just takes time, and I'm trying not to push myself too hard. I'm trying to take my time with this game so I can enjoy the process of creation. I think that's an important tip for those out there who are designers or illustrators. Don't push yourself too hard. You'll have those spurts of energy where you'll spend an entire day and crank out a lot of work. So in those moments where you don't feel necessarily like designing or working on your creation, take a break from it, and it'll always be there waiting for you. So anyways, UnderQuest, I'm very excited about it. Like I said, I'm taking my time with it. Let's take a look at how this alchemy system works. So certain enemies in the game will drop ingredients. Also, there'll be random encounters that'll give them to you, and other ways. You'll basically look at them as a type of loot that you can collect. So when you gain an ingredient, let's say it's the first ingredient you gain, and you get yourself this little bottle here filled with some sort of liquid or concoction. Now, there are some symbols on here that we'll go over. If the ingredient has a skull icon, that means that there's a risk associated with using it while crafting. So whenever you combine two ingredients to make a potion, if either of the cards or ingredients or both have a skull icon, you have to roll on a risk chart to determine if something happens. Now, 50% of the time, nothing happens, but if you roll low on the 12-sided dice, different things can happen to you. You can get poisoned, or you can lose some health or some energy. You can gain disease. Different not so great things can happen. So there's a little bit of risk when using ingredients with these skulls. Now, the more mind, which is a attribute that your characters will have, the higher your mind level is, you get to add a certain modifier to that roll, meaning that if your player is intelligent, they're likely going to be able to craft better using these ingredients with the skull. Moving on, these little symbols here that'll be on the final cards, you'll see them. I've already shared some final cards on social media, and those indicate how much mind you have to have in order to actually even use this ingredient. Now, most of the ingredients require 2 mind, some require 1 mind, and some of the more powerful ingredients require 3 mind. In the game, your mind is going to obviously range from 1 to potentially 5. But likely you're going to be in the 1 to 3 range starting out. So you likely might not, there's a chance you might not be able to use all the ingredients, and that gives you incentive to not build a straightforward melee type character and try to bash your way through the dungeons. This sort of makes you have to think, well, if I want to be able to use ingredients to heal myself or do other effects, then I better maybe put some skill points into my mind. Anyways, so 1 card by itself does nothing for you, but once you gain more cards, you can you can mix them together to get an effect. Now, when you have 2 ingredients, you have to look for like symbols. So in this scenario here, this has the lightning bolts stand for energy. We'll go over the 6 different things that you can have. In fact, I think most of them are shown here. So lightning bolts indicate energy, mushrooms indicate food. This little drop here means that you can heal some poison. If you're poisoned, you can remove that poison from your character up to the amount shown. Hearts obviously are for regaining health. This blessing symbol here allows you to move down on the disease tracker, and there is one other one that is a grit symbol, which when you get grit, it allows you to reroll dice and do different things during combat. Also, grit can be used to cast certain spells and do extra damage with certain particular weapons. So it's a a unit that can be, it's at 0 typically at the beginning of battle, and you gain it while when you sustain injury, but some characters can gain it in other ways. But essentially grit is a dice modifier, but it also can be utilized to enhance attacks, whether they're magical or physical in nature. So anyways, back to this, these two ingredients here, the only shared components or powers are energy. So there's 3 energy shown here and 2 energy shown here. Since these are both on the same row, they occupy the same row, when combining these two together, you get to add both of these together. So this would be a fantastic potion to create. It would only require 2 mind, because each of these ingredients require 2 mind. You would have to roll and see if there's a risk that or something bad happens, but the outcome would be getting 5 energy. Anyone who's played Iron Helm or Desolate or any other of my games that utilizes energy, you realize how important and how powerful that is. Now, let's say that this energy, these 2 energy happen to be on the second row and this poison was on the first row. Well, now when you combine these 2 cards, the energies wouldn't match up. They'd be on different rows. You can still combine them and create a potion that's going to gain you energy, but you only gain as much energy as the higher value of the card with the higher value. So if this card has 3 and this card had 2 energy, you would only gain the 3 energy. So it'd be a weaker energy potion. So let's look at a few more examples and combinations that could come up with here. Here's a health. This one has health, cures 2 poison, some energy. It's a pretty powerful one. This little toenail here does health, energy. Actually, that's a good example here. There's that grit symbol. So if you were to try to combine both of these, you would have to have at least 2 mind, because that's the highest mind indicated on both ingredients. There is 2 skulls. You only have to roll once on the risk chart, but there is a risk in using these ingredients. But combining them, you could combine for the energy effect, but since they're on they don't occupy the same row, you only would get the 3 energy. Now, if this was on this row, like we saw before, you'd get all 4. Also, you notice that they both have hearts, so you could heal yourself instead. Now, you can't do both. Now, there might be skills in the game that allow you, as an alchemist or a master alchemist, to combine cards if they have multiple parts of their ingredients that match up. So you could potentially make a potion that would gain you energy and health if you had a certain skill that allowed you to do that. But as just a base character in the game, you would have to choose, do I want the 3 energy by combining the energy, or the 2 health by combining for the health outcome? So let's go over the different types of cards here. What do we have? As far as, I think I have every type of symbol shown. Yeah, so there's only have 1 card with grit. Like I've already talked about grit. We understand what food is. The mushroom is food. You need food at the end of each level, just like in Iron Helm and in Desolate. You need to feed your character. In Desolate, it's oxygen, but you need to have some sort of food to consume. Food also will have alternative powers, sort of like in Tin Helm, where you can spend food to gain energy and health. It sort of becomes that unit that can be utilized for multiple different things. So that is how alchemy is going to work in UnderQuest. I'm very excited about it. I'm excited to draw all these different cool little ingredients. I already have pixie ashes, ogre's toenail, and some dukkha berries that I made up. There'll be some creations that I make up myself, and some will be classic things that you would normally see in a fantasy setting. Okay, so the last thing I wanted to discuss really quickly here is adding small details to your game. Now, I try to do this, and I've been trying to do it more and more as I've grown as a designer. So sometimes we design something and we just put it out there in the world, and it is what it is. Now, sometimes you have extra components that you can utilize, especially if you're designing on the Game Crafter. So for an example, these are the tracker cards in Tin Helm. These are utilized to track your character's health, favor, energy, food, and your enemy's health and what level of the dungeon you're on. Now, I needed these four to be on, I needed these obviously all to be on one side of the card so they can be used all at once. I couldn't just put some of it on the back. I couldn't put this on the back of this card, essentially. They had to be like this. Now, what do you do with the back sides of these cards? Now, I easily could have just made them double-sided, having the same stuff on both sides. Now, the designer in me now, looking back, I probably could have changed things or maybe made it like a difficult hardcore mode on the reverse side, but I didn't feel that Tin Helm needed that. So at the time, what I decided to do with the back sides of the cards was to create a little puzzle. Now, some players have pointed this out, that they've figured this part of it out, but I don't think that everyone realizes that you can create a cool little panoramic illustration by flipping the cards over and making basically a simple little puzzle. What this does for me as a designer is it's fun. It's fun for me to find ways to add little Easter egg type things like this to games. But I also think it's a great way of connecting with your audience. They see that you go to the extra mile to try to do something a little bit different with your components. I could have easily just left the backs blank, or like I said, this card could have had the same thing on both sides, but I decided to go a different route. Now, this isn't to say that I'm fantastic and awesome. I'm just showing this as an example of what you can do as a designer to show your followers or your fans or people who are purchasing your games that you kind of went a little bit above and beyond. And I think that's important. And I do another thing in some of my games that some people have caught on to. If you are a fan of Desolate or have played Desolate, you will realize, or you know, that the what you're trying to get in the game is these power cells to power up the escape shuttle and escape. The power cells are an important aspect of Desolate. Now, for fun, I started hiding these power cells in illustrations in different games, starting with the Consuming Mass card in Iron Helm. If you look in the side, well, basically is a gelatinous cube, you'll see a skeleton, a helmet, a sword, and things you would normally see in this creature, but down here there is a power cell, and some people have spotted it and shared it on social media, and that, as a creator, is fantastic, because I love seeing someone find something like that, because it brings joy to me, but I also think it's fun for them to know that there's these little hidden things within my game. So once I did that, I was kind of hooked. If you own Gate, the Traveler card, if you notice the necklace that this lady is wearing, it is a power cell. So I added a power cell there. If you have Stonefire, one of the location cards, the shore, there is washed up on a beach, a power cell. And here's one that I don't know if anyone has noticed yet, and I haven't seen anyone call it out up to this point, but if you own Iron Chest, you think it's just a cool box, maybe you didn't pay attention to it, but if you rotate it around and you look on the one side, hidden down here is yet another power cell. For me, that's fun. It's fun for me to hide things like that in my games. So my point in all this is, if you have a game and you have extra cards, or you have some sort of thing in your game that you want to add to other games to sort of create this mythos, or this, make all your games kind of connect in a strange way, I think that that's fantastic. And I don't know, maybe some people think it's weird or annoying, but I love adding these little Easter eggs. And in UnderQuest, there's going to be quite a few of them. I'm really having fun with the design, adding and implementing these little tiny things that I will not tell anyone about, and I'm just waiting to see if anyone finds them or figures them out. There's going to be some little puzzles, and I don't want to go into more details, but there's going to be games kind of hidden within the game, so to speak. And to me, that's a fun challenge to do that as a designer, but I think it's great for the people who purchase the game, because then they're going to find some strange little things, and they're like, I know what that is, or they'll figure out something. And like I said, I don't want to get too much in the details. And another thing that I do quite a bit is I add promotional cards to certain games, like in Gates, the expansion for Gate, I added cards that go to Tin Helm, added some characters. And some people frown upon that because then they feel like they have to purchase a game in order to complete another game. But for me, I just like doing it as a way of paying it forward to those who are following me and purchasing my games. Here's something that might help you in another one of your games. So I do like to add at least one promo card to every one of my designs for another one of my games. I think it's just a fun way of connecting the universes and the worlds together. So that's all I have for this episode. Thanks for stopping by, and I'll see you next time.